And we're live. Welcome to the program on this Monday as we look at a news landscape that is increasingly fragile and increasingly changing. I mean, wow, they're talking about getting rid of all kinds of people at CBS. I mean, even Oprah's bestie, apparently. We're going to get into all of that here today on the Trish Regan Show. Welcome to the program, everyone. It's good to have you here. We are in the top 100 of all podcasts on YouTube. What do you know? How do you like that? Thank you so much for subscribing, sharing, liking, commenting, all of that stuff. Make sure you keep doing it. Make sure you hit the bell if you haven't already so that you know exactly when we're live every day. We begin on today's top story, which is the shakedown and the shake-up over at CBS News, a place I used to work, actually. CBS News has been going through a lot of challenges, of course, and it really seemed like they didn't want Donald Trump to win. Now, did they? I mean, just look at what they were doing on 60 Minutes, kind of reinventing Kamala Harris in real time, trying to actually make her sound like she made sense. That wasn't easy. I always said that editor should definitely get an Emmy. Definitely. Because, when you have to try and make sense of word salad like that, and you got to admire him, he did a pretty remarkable job. The producers at 60 Minutes, the editors at 60 Minutes, well, it may have, in some ways, effectively cost them their network. I mean, they were going down the path that they were going down for some time. Let's be very, very clear. But there are certain things that may have pushed them over the edge, and consequently, they fell into the hands of Skydance, which is owned by Larry Ellison's son, David. And he decided to do a lot of new things. In fact, he's still doing new things. I mean, when it's all said and done, he may just get rid of CBS altogether and take over CNN and use that as his news outlet. We don't know. Maybe he'll just fold CNN up. They'll fold up shop and they'll just have CBS. It's not clear right now, but he brought in a really smart woman who came from the New York Times. And you know what? I like her because she left the New York Times. She left the New York Times in 2020 because she's like, you guys are a whole bunch of narrow-minded libs that won't actually think a little bit bigger. And so she started her own publication. I like that. Barry Weiss, I'm talking about. And so she started the Free Press. And Ellison acquired it for $150 million and then brought her in to remake the CBS newsroom. But I got news for her. I used to work there. I don't think it's that easy to remake. And maybe she's finding this out increasingly. Maybe David Ellison is finding this out increasingly. But also the people that are there are finding out that they may not be there much longer. So let's talk about who's out, who's possibly still going, who may have a shot at some kind of future. You see three people on the screen. If you're listening to this on Spotify, thank you very much for doing that. I mean, you know that you can watch it on Spotify as well. I'm going to put that in the links for you. You can watch it on Spotify, so subscribe over there for free. And we're here live on YouTube and on Rumble in real time. I'm looking at Norah O'Donnell. A guy that's no longer there that maybe you never heard of, Jeff Glor. He's now in local news. He left before all this really started getting underway. And then you've got a guy on, as I look at this on the right, whose name is John Dickerson. Now, maybe you never heard of him before. I used to work there and I haven't really heard of him. So I think he used to be at Time Magazine. He was a print reporter, and then at Slate. And then maybe around 2009 or 2010, they brought him over to CBS with a whole lot of fanfare, and he came over to take over Face the Nation. For whatever reason, that didn't go so well. The next thing you know, Margaret Brennan's in the seat, and John Dickerson was kind of hanging out, running the Washington News Bureau at some point for CBS. And then, what do you know, somehow lands alongside another guy in the anchor seat, taking over for the lady that you see in the picture, Norah O'Donnell in red, taking over. So he hasn't even been there that long, but it has not gone that well. It has not gone that well. And the ratings, if you can imagine, they're even worse than they were when Norah O'Donnell was there. So it's bad, and worse. Here is his statement that he came out with on Instagram today. Local news. Okay, we get your humor. Self-deprecation. You know what? Cute. At the end of this year, I will leave CBS. 16 years after I sat in as Face the Nation's anchor for the first time. I'm like, 16 years? The guy's been there 16 years and hardly anybody's ever heard of him. I am extremely grateful for all that CBS gave me, the work, the audience's attention, and the honor of being part of the network's history. And I am grateful for my dear colleagues. You've made me a better journalist and a better human. I will miss you. Now, it's not clear, if he's leaving on his own accord, if he's leaving because they don't have any money, or if he's leaving because they said, see ya. We don't know. I don't really care. Again, he's not exactly what you'd call a household name. maybe they wanted that. I mean, maybe the idea was, okay, let's have sort of like a blank slate, somebody who doesn't really seem like he stands for necessarily anything, but I can guarantee you, I mean, if he was working at CBS, he most likely was like left of left. I mean, I'm sorry, but the newsroom is what the newsroom is. And, we could talk about it at some point. I remember struggling to get a story about privatized Social Security on the air because they'd done a brilliant job on it in Chile. But Dan Rather had no interest in it, absolutely not. I did get it on, incidentally, under Bob Schieffer. He was from Texas originally, a little bit more conservative, shall we say. Bob probably had the best ratings they ever had at CBS News. But they've been deteriorating because you know what? You don't need necessarily the best ratings in order to still eke out a little bit of money. They knew they could never really win against NBC or ABC for that matter, and I guess they chose not to play the game. So here's the story here in the New York Post. CBS Evening News co-anchor John Dickerson to leave network after awkward on-screen vibe, according to a source. So apparently, he didn't really hit it off with Maurice. Is that the thinking? The two of them having to do the show together, that it was kind of awkward. That's one of the excuses given by the New York Post. If you can trust the New York Post reporting on this, I can tell you this. You know what? They didn't need him. That's probably the reality of it. They just didn't need him. I mean, that genre in and of itself is dead. I'm sorry. I mean, they can try and save it and bring it back all they want. They tried with Katie Couric, didn't work. They tried with Norah O'Donnell. Then they tried with this duo, didn't work. You know why? People don't want 22 minutes of news with all the, what commercials sandwiched in. Yeah, we'll talk about conservatives for lower health care at some point because it's relevant. I mean, you can't watch the evening news with your kids anymore, for goodness sake. So they get 22 minutes of news, if that, 8 minutes of commercial, and it's canned, like every stinking second of it. And I say this from somebody who's worked in the industry. Guess what? If you had a 10-second tag, they'd assign you 10 seconds. God help you if you did 12. Really. I mean, I used to get so nervous, like, oh my gosh, can I really say all this in exactly 10 seconds? What if I go 9? What if I go 11? I mean, by the time I got to cable, I was like, hallelujah, oh my goodness, I get to actually talk. And hey, over here in YouTube land, well, I'm sorry, I can talk, right? So you might get a really long show some days. Depends on how talkative I am about all this stuff. But the point being that there's no scripts, there's no canned anything. In fact, some days you guys have to remind me about the audio levels. It's all okay, though. I think that you appreciate, and I certainly appreciate, the authenticity of what we do over here versus the very canned, scripted. Okay, you get a minute 10. They sometimes give you what they call a donut. You get a 9-second intro with your minute 10 on camera, followed by your 10 or 12-second tag. And that's the evening news as you know it. And I think people are sick of this canned mechanism. And so regardless of whether John Dickerson, who, again, you may never have heard of, is there or not, it just doesn't matter. Like, you can put anybody in the seat. You can put, I don't know, like, you could put Kim Kardashian in the seat. It's not going to matter. I know you guys probably don't like her, but you get my drift, okay? You're not going to bring in the kids to watch CBS Evening News. And so this is actually one of the problems that Barry's going to have, because she's going to think about how she advances this news product, this newsroom, into a new era where we're all streaming online. Now, they do have some kind of streaming product, and I think he had some kind of streaming show, but they're not exactly, raking in the ratings, shall we say, on those either. I mean, I look at what we're doing here on the Trish Regan channel, and not to, toot my own horn, but hey, we just started this like a year and a half ago, guys, and I just come on here live with you every day, and you've responded, and I think you appreciate, as I said, the transparency, the authenticity, and when I look at our numbers, I'm outdoing all of my old shops that I used to work at, okay? Just little old me. You compare these numbers on YouTube to CBS or to CNBC or to Bloomberg or to Fox Business. It's a long list, right? Or to CNBC, a very, very long list. And the reality is we're doing more here. So what does that mean for the CBS Evening News product going forward? How does it really change in this environment? I mean, this is perhaps one of the reasons why they're getting to the potential of a deal here with they're looking possibly to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Will that help them? I don't know. I mean, I don't think you necessarily want to go deeper into the news business if you're them right now. But they may be looking to have some kind of competition against the Netflixes of the world. We were talking about Barry earlier, okay? So this is the woman that left the New York Times, and she's a print reporter by background. She started a great publication. I mean, really interesting writing over there at the Free Press. And then she came in, they bought it. Ellison bought it for $150 million, not a bad payday for her. And she's running the newsroom there at CBS. But, you know, the place is leaking like a sieve, and apparently there are these hit stories on her all the time. And she's having some challenges. Look at the New York Post. I mean, they're getting like their daily feed from the CBS newsroom that's like leaking. So poor Barry's trying to take a page out of Pete Hegseth's book. And she's telling all the managers, hey, you got to find who's responsible for this. But the problem she's running up against is that there's an internal bias against her, right? There's a very sort of liberal mindset and a very closed mindset. You know, you're one of us or you're not. I mean, John Dickerson, apparently his mom had been a producer there on Face the Nation years and years ago. So at least, you know, he came in with that kind of clout. Barry, for goodness sakes, oh my gosh, she supports Israel, and she's a Republican. I mean, I actually don't know if she'd call herself a classic Republican. I think Barry probably identifies as independent and is just horrified by what has become of the media. Don't quote me on that, but I think that she's pretty much in the camp of, hey, you know, we should give everybody a fair shot at having an opinion, and you can't just block people out because you don't agree with them and, you know, sit there like a little kid and stomp your feet and close your ears. And so she's offered something very different, at least on the print side. Now, can they do that over on the CBS Evening News or the CBS Morning News? And then my other question is, do you even want to? Like, maybe the answer is you go straight to streaming and you say, you know, forget this because that audience is gone and it's not coming back. And so now there's all this talk. Okay, so who's going to anchor the CBS Evening News now that John Dickerson has jumped ship or gotten fired? We don't really know. And again, we don't really care, okay? So Norah O'Donnell is apparently trying to make a comeback. This is a woman who was highly criticized for some of her debate stuff that she did alongside Margaret Brennan, where she kind of went in for the kill on Donald Trump. She's being talked about. Apparently, she's a very nice, lovely, charming person, and apparently she had a very nice lunch with Barry the other day. So she's someone who's being looked at. And there's a few others. I'm going to get to them because she may be trying to go to, dare I say, Fox to find a new news anchor. But before we get to that, Gayle King, Oprah's buddy, Oprah's gal pal, is she out of a job? There's talk she may be because she costs a pretty penny, and apparently she's not really bringing in her weight because she's $13 to $15 million allegedly. And well, you know, I think they got to figure out how they realign the newsroom, and Gayle may find herself on the bad end of that one. Right, so a lot of changes here with the Skydance merger coming in. The CBS Morning News. All I can tell you about that is when I worked there, I would call people up and they'd be like, what? CBS, what? The morning show on CBS. Like, what? I think they made a movie about this actually at one point. Because there was this young producer who gets assigned to run the morning show, and it was like the worst show, right? That's how I always felt, because I'd be like, hey, we're like the Today Show, only we're CBS. Or we're like Good Morning America, only we're CBS. So that was a tough show, and it's still a tough show. And their big signature talent there is Gayle King. They used to have Norah O'Donnell on the show, and I guess they had Gayle, and at one point Charlie Rose too, and then, you know, all that stuff blew up. And so now they just have Gayle alongside maybe a couple other people, including this one guy who got in all kinds of trouble because he dared to question this DEI guru who was out with a book. Yeah, that's Tony, I want to make sure I get his name right. DeCopley? No. DeCopley, you can tell I don't watch much CBS. Anyway, Tony was like in all kinds of hot water because Tony dared to challenge this black author who basically had no use for Israel, said some pretty bad stuff about it. And, you know, he's Israeli, actually. He's Jewish. I think his ex-wife and kids live in Israel. So he fired back. And the next thing you know, the newsroom is blowing up and everybody's mad and everybody like is addressing him and giving a talk down to him. So he's been floated in recent years, according to the New York Post, as a possible anchor for the CBS Evening News. And I would just say, you know what, that's not a bad idea. Some people are saying, well, he doesn't have the street cred. He doesn't have the journalism cred. I would say, you know what? He was willing to take the DEI guy to task in an important way. He was willing to take on his whole newsroom in the process. So that kind of gives him a little street cred anyway in my book. And then I just also say this, you know what? I'm betting he's cheap. And you guys need cheap. You need cheap. Because nobody's watching your show, okay? Nobody watches the 22 minutes. So you can put anyone in. All they're doing, they're effectively like an actor, right? You're just reading a teleprompter. Yeah, I know, you're supposed to have some editorial guidance, but I'm going to leave that up to Barry, okay? Barry's got that covered, and she's going to have good people. So you need someone who's comfortable enough looking on air, doesn't seem like a pansy. Again, he's the guy that stood up to the DEI author and his entire newsroom, and doesn't cost you a fortune. So win-win for Tony. I think it's a great idea. Put him in the slot. He may be the one. I mean, unless they go with somebody from Fox, but, you know, I don't think they can really afford anybody from Fox, if I'm completely honest. Okay, sources say if Gail King, Oprah's buddy, leaves, then Barry Weiss would basically be able to go in there and redo all the shows, right? The morning show and the evening news, which she should want to redo in both cases. And she could move Tony into the evening news, maybe move Nora towards the morning news, if that's in fact what she decides to do. Again, you know, in the interest of cheap, because this is a network where cheap matters, this is an industry, frankly, where cheap matters, because the industry itself is really challenged, right? With everything else that's going on, hey, over here where it's at. So that's one option. Again, the New York Post points out when he interviewed that author, Coates, who had been condemning Israel in his book that was saying it was like an apartheid state, etc. You know, he was reprimanded like you wouldn't believe. It became this huge issue in the newsroom. And he's like, hey, excuse me, but you know, when you're running a liberal newsroom, or in his case, he was just talent in a liberal newsroom, you're going to run into these issues. So he might be the guy. You know who else could be the guy? Bret Baier is apparently under consideration by Barry Weiss and by Ellison for the top job as a CBS News anchor. Now, Bret Baier, you know him from Fox, okay? Great anchor, fair. I know some people, you know, you get mad at him because sometimes he challenges Trump in ways that maybe you don't like, but he's, for the most part, pretty fair. And he would be a refreshing face, would he not, to see on the CBS Evening News. But I'm going to tell you this, Barry, you can't afford him. I mean, not unless you're willing to share some $150 million you made from Ellison on the Free Press. I really don't think you can afford him. And Bret, I'm going to give you a little advice. I know Bret well. He was a fun person to work with, a great person to work with there at Fox. I would just say, don't do it. Don't do it, buddy. You know why? You will be put out to pasture. It's over. You go to network news and no one ever hears of you again. Finito, right? I mean, just ask Katie Couric. So you don't want to do that. You really, really don't want to do that no matter how much money they're willing to pay you, because you're not going to have the longevity. You're going to go over there. It's not going to go well. The whole newsroom will hate you because you came from Fox and because you are Barry's pick. And then it is game over for your career. So in terms of longevity, I'm sure you saved up enough money. Maybe you don't really care. Maybe it would be fun to just do a 22-minute show. But I don't think the audience is there. And I don't think the career longevity is there. Now, maybe if they had something else going on, like streaming stuff, maybe if you believed in their business plan, but you know, Fox is a pretty good situation, so it'll be kind of hard to dump Fox for the CBS Evening News. Just saying, okay? And again, I say this as someone who's worked at cable, someone who has worked at network, and someone who has seen the other side over here. And this really is, I mean, this is the future, and I just regret that I didn't come here sooner, frankly. But for Bret, you know, it may seem enticing on the one hand, because you're like, ooh, it's the CBS Evening News. And yeah, I'm guessing he's around my age. And as kids, we used to watch, well, we watched at home World News Tonight, ABC. because we had an ABC affiliate in New Hampshire, which was a big deal. So we would watch ABC World News Tonight. So when I was first starting in this business, it was everything to me to be a network news correspondent. I mean, that was like the bomb, right? Because that was sort of what I wanted to achieve, because as a kid, I'm looking up at the TV thinking this is the epitome of it. So there may be a little bit of that in him, and I'm just going to say, get it out, stamp it out, forget about it. Cable is way better. And what's really much better, just to be honest, guys, is being over here. And you think about what we're able to do so much with actually very little, and yet we're able to see this demand from the audience. And so that's just my sort of 2 cents for Brett. And, for Barry, it's a nice idea, sure, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. Meanwhile, she's also looking at Jennings. Oh, my goodness, Scott Jennings. He's like the only reason to watch CNN right now. And again, I would say to Scott, don't do it, unless you can keep your CNN gig. I mean, maybe they'll let him stay at CNN, so, he's out there in the universe, and then do something on CBS, maybe a contributor position, and, you call it a day. Because don't forget, I'm pretty sure, I mean, we'll see, but they put in 3 offers last month alone, apparently. Yeah, the New York Times reporting that Larry Ellison's Skydance Paramount, now owner of CBS News, has made 3 offers to Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns CNN. So when it's all said and done, CBS and CNN may just be all one and the same. So maybe, Scott, you take a payday from CBS while continuing to work on CNN. And then, hey, at least Barry can say, I have some sensible people in the building. They won't like him either. I mean, they won't. But look, I mean, this is just what's happening. Like, this is like the world is changing, and it's changing fast. You got Warner Brothers Discovery that basically has already said, no matter what happens, they're going to spin off their cable assets, similar to like the deal you're seeing with Comcast and MSNBC, Versant, I think they're calling it. I just like to give it a little flair. So they're going to be spinning off the MSNBC and all the cable assets, because they want to protect Comcast, the brand. Well, Warner Brothers Discovery is kind of trying to do a similar type thing, and they would be spinning off, say, CNN. Well, maybe Skydance, Paramount comes in, and they have a choice. They could either buy the whole kit and caboodle, which I don't think Zaslav really wants. Zaslav being the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. I don't think he really wants that. But that's one thing that could happen. The other thing that could happen is that they could buy parts of the business, including maybe CBS News. Though, forgive me, they would buy CNN and then combine it with CBS News. I mean, you could argue that maybe that's more headache than you want, because, heck, now you got to deal with a cable company. And let's face it, the cable companies are not making any money anymore because, well, the cable assets, the way this business works, if you're on cable, you get paid by the cable company. And that means you can't sell ads on YouTube or any other streaming product, even your own streaming product. So that becomes kind of a sticky point of contention, which means that business can only grow so much, only as much as the cable companies will pay for it. If they'll pay you $1 a household, if they'll pay you $5 a household. But you're sitting there going, but everybody's cutting the cord. Like, nobody wants cable anymore. They're like, okay, let me go a la carte. I'm going to go over to YouTube where I can get it for free. This is a better deal. I mean, heck, we had a lot of cable boxes in my house. I think we saved $600 a month. Right? On cable boxes. I mean, this stuff adds up over a while. Cut the cord and you'll find out. So this is what all of these guys are facing right now. There's a big article last week in Business Insider. Warner Brothers Discovery pursues entire company sales. So they are looking, Warner Brothers Discovery wants to sell off all of it together, right? Or they would continue forward with those spin-off plans. And so investors are excited. Maybe they can make some money out of this. We'll see. I mean, again, I think the media business is really challenged. And I think somebody's going to figure out how to. This is an AP story reporting on it as well. Again, the New York Times saying that there were 3 different offers there for Warner Brothers Discovery. And go back to the Business Insider story, one of the things that they talked about being a primary theory here is how these companies survive in this new media environment. And one way is to become a challenger, if you would, to say Netflix, Disney, Amazon. How do you do that? Or, YouTube. which good luck. I mean, I think that's really formidable. But they're trying to find a way. So they think, okay, if we had Paramount together with Warner Brothers Discovery, we could be an entity that would really be able to take on the likes of Netflix, Disney, and Amazon. And yet, you still have those news businesses over there on the side. So what do you do with those? And the thinking could be, okay, if we buy everything, then we get CNN too, and we can merge CBS and CNN together, which I got to tell you, like, as long as I've been in this industry, everybody has been talking about. And now I think you got a lot of anchors at CNN that are getting nervous. So they're really nervous right now at CBS News, but they're also really nervous at CNN, where they're realizing their days may be numbered. Because in a merger, what happens? Typically, you lose jobs. You're going to have duplication of talent. You don't necessarily need everyone that you thought you needed, including, well, the guy they just outed, or he left, I don't really know the details, over at CBS, the CBS Evening news anchor, John Dickerson. So a lot of people here probably dropping like flies. Gail King, handwriting's on the wall, you cost too much. And then this guy, Tapper. I mean, I really am wondering how long he sticks around. We've seen multiple articles about the fear there that you see with CNN having layoffs coming. I mean, we've got CBS, more layoffs expected next week. You've already had some layoffs at CNN, with more possibly on the way in light of this potential merger. In the meantime, Jakey boy, I swear to God, he's looking for a job at Fox as we speak. I mean, why else would he write the book he wrote? Why else would he suddenly try and sound conservative, although not all the time? In fact, there's this great moment, you guys, a fantastic moment where Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, totally takes him down, because they're talking about the possibility of gerrymandering in California, and Jake's getting all hot and bothered and, hot under the collar about the possibility that, oh my goodness, they're going to do some redistricting. And he's like, hey, buddy, have you been around? Like, this is the way the world works. This is a great clip. It's gone totally viral. It took off on the Shorts channel this morning. I want to show you.
As you acknowledged, this all started because of redistricting in Texas, and this was Trump pushing Republican-controlled states to throw out their current congressional maps so as to cook the books, so that it is less likely for Democrats to retake control of the House during the next year midterms. I mean, is it fair to argue that do you believe that the Republican Party is starting this?
No, Jake. There has been gerrymandering going on for 200 years. There is such extreme gerrymandering going on that in a state like Massachusetts, that has 40% of the people voting for Trump, they have 0 representatives. The Republican Party has 0 representatives sent to the House. Think about that. In New Mexico, if 45% of the people voted for Trump and voted Republican, and 0 is sent to the House, 0 representative from the Republican Party. So there's gerrymandering, crazy gerrymandering going on all over the country. And we wanted to try to stop it in California, and we did stop it in California, and we went around the country. So I think this whole thing about finger pointing and saying they did it, so therefore we should doing it, that's not really the way to go. The one party should outperform the other party. It should be performance. And when it comes to midterm elections, as you know, always the party that is not in the White House usually wins by 20, 25, 30 seats. So what does 5 seats matter in the first place in Texas? It is crazy. Yeah. We should outperform them. That is where the action is.
What do you think about that, Jake? So, I thought it was a pretty good takedown, and I like how Arnold Schwarzenegger is getting out there lately, and he took down The View, of course. Oh, Whoopi, she didn't know what to do, nor did Joy. I mean, they were there with their mouths on the floor, right? As he said to them, hey, wait a second, you're an immigrant in this country. You should act like you're a guest in this country. You should be grateful to this country. You should have respect for this country. I mean, they didn't know what to do, right? So Arnold Schwarzenegger is getting out in front of some of these things. I'm kind of wondering why. What's that about? Does he have political aspirations? Does he want to come back as governor of California? I don't entirely know, but I'm impressed that he's out there taking down the media in real time. Jakey, I don't know what it means for you, however, if you're really trying to get that job at Fox, right? Or even if you're trying to get on the good side of Barry, given that, well, your network might get absorbed by her and CBS. You got to actually seem like you're a little bit more fair. And like, if we go back in time, this is one guy who's just not fair. Remember? I will never forget this. And I'm sorry if you've seen it before, but you should never forget this either. Because at a time when the country was at risk of putting somebody who was seriously in mental decline, one Joe Biden, in as president, the likes of Jake Tapper and every other anchor in mainstream media were trying to tell us we were the crazy ones because we're like, hey, you know, maybe he's not doing so well. And do not forget for 1 second what he said in his takedown of Lara Trump live on air. Watch.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to watch somebody on stage
that's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter.
Yeah,
I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar.
Wow.
And I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is
Hell yeah.
I genuinely feel
Laura
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure.
You know what? I will never get tired of seeing that because I think it's just really important to remember. He's trying to remarket himself right now. Completely remarket himself as though he's some kind of independent that called for Joe Biden's firing. I mean, this was like just a few weeks before he suddenly decided after that disastrous debate to admit the truth to America.
Discernible pattern of Democratic officials seemingly trying to convince you, the public, to not believe what you saw and what you heard with your eyes and with your ears on Thursday night.
Yeah.
What I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare,
yeah,
the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Democratic officials have tried to spin this in many ways. They said President Biden just had a cold. They said it was just one off night, akin to when President Obama in 2012 was rusty and seemed a little huffy.
Oh, no. That was more than rusty.
Make no mistake, most Democratic officials witnessed the same shocking spectacle that you did.
Okay. And then he came out with a book about it. Right? So I'm just looking at this as a realist. Okay. I don't know his agent. I don't know him. I'm like, buddy, okay, the jig is up. All right. Everybody sees through what you were doing. Okay. It didn't work out with Kamala. And now you're up a creek without a paddle. So you decide to write a book about how bad the media was, how biased the media was when you were like captain of the biased media, for goodness sakes, over at CNN. All right. Come on. So, once again, another reason why I think Americans are so tired of the likes of cable and network television, which is why I say cheap, cheap, cheap. Remember that. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Okay, Barry? When you're casting your talent, and it's casting, because I don't think anybody has a whole lot of oomph there. They're going to be looking to you to lead the way. In all seriousness, you've got some on-air talent that maybe can act and read their little scripts in the little prompter, timed out for 12 seconds or 22 seconds or whatever you're going to give them. But you can't pay up big time for the likes of maybe somebody like Brett Baer, who might have a little bit more substance, because you're not going to be able to afford it. And Brett should never want to go there because it only means lights out. Unless you guys have some grand plan, but I'd be willing to bet on myself, right? More than an institution. And I think that's the direction of the media right now, where individual personalities matter more than the institutions themselves, because I think people trust the individual personalities that are willing to tell it like it is and willing to take the heat for it. I mean, heck, hey, not too many people can say they got fired from Fox, right? Like me and Tucker, I guess we're sort of it. Oh, wait, no, maybe it was also, there were a few others. There was, Dan, technically, I don't think he really got fired. I think that was an inability to come to terms because they didn't want to pay. Mm-hmm. And Dan, being an independent creator at the time, knew what he was worth. So that was more a situation, perhaps, where they were never going to get there in terms of money, and he has to have a life. You don't want to do every Saturday night. Of course, the poor guy is now out there. Look at that. You want to talk patriotism, doing his part for the country as the deputy head of the FBI. And we have a lot of stuff that needs to get done and a lot of stuff that is fortunately getting done at this moment in time. I mean, whether we think about Letitia, whether we think about Comey, whether we think about Adam Schiff, who may be coming next. I told you to be on the lookout for that one. Meanwhile, oh, wow, the media, we've been talking about this. They're so upset. They're so upset about this darn ballroom. I mean, every time I turn around, I see another person really upset about the stupid ballroom. Rachel Maddow, there was a great meme. I will show it to you. If you didn't see it on Friday, you get to see this because it's actually really, really funny. It came out about her, but it's like nonstop. All they can talk about is the stupid ballroom. And it's like, guys, look, he took over the East Wing, which, by the way, really hadn't been touched since 1970 when Rosalind Carter redid it, so it could become the First Lady's Wing. So it's always historically been the First Lady's Wing. And he said, you know what, we're getting rid of this. It's a mess. I'm going to tear it down, and I'm going to put up a ballroom. And I'm not going to charge the taxpayers for it. I mean, heck, Barack Obama, he went in there and had to redo the whole place for he and Michelle and the girls, because they couldn't live in such squalor as the White House. They redid it to the tune of $375 million. In today's dollars, that would be about $550 million adjusted for inflation. And they got rid of the tennis court and put in a basketball court. And the media went wild. Oh, this is fantastic. Well, you paid for that. I paid for that. All American taxpayers paid for that. And yet now we're getting a ballroom. And nobody's actually paying for it as a taxpayer. Instead, you've got all kinds of companies, including, this is the icing on the cake, Comcast, which owns MSNBC, and MSNBC cannot believe there would be such thing as a ballroom. Watch this.
Is it Donald Trump to decide who succeeds him as the nominee?
Nobody's going to succeed him. He's going to succeed himself. Let's just be real. He's not building that ballroom because he's planning on leaving. He's not going anywhere, and nobody's going to get him out of there. And by the way, the Supreme Court says you can't run again. He will just ignore the courts. And I'm happy to see Marco Rubio. I thought Steve Witkoff was our Secretary of State, so I'm happy to see that he's appeared and popped up somewhere. But he's not going to be the nominee. J.D. Vance is not going to be the nominee because Donald Trump is not going anywhere. And I understand that sounds crazy and wacko. But think about all the other crazy, wacko things that this president has done that we could not believe he'd ever do. And you see why he's going to run again in 2028. And he's not going anywhere unless, the ravages of time take him away. He's not leaving that White House.
Wow.
Julie Raginski, thank you.
And this woman doesn't even challenge her on it. It's like, oh, Julie Raginski, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. She doesn't even say, wait, hey. Really? I mean, that's again why I like Scott Jennings on CNN, and that's why it's the only show that's rating. I can't even, it's like 9 o'clock at night or something. They get the round panel, and it's like Scott versus 10 other people, because he's the only one that would listen to something like that and say, hey, wait a second. That's a pretty egregious, aggressive, wacko thing to say. But this is what they did all along, and they're doing it over and over and over again. Oh, gosh, I saw something with Biden today. I don't even want to torture you with it. But he's on and on about, the demise of democracy. I'm like, for goodness sakes, guys, give it up. You already did that, okay? You tried that. Didn't work, right? What happened? Oh, gosh, Trump got elected again. He won the Electoral College, and he won the popular vote. So you keep telling us he's akin to Hitler. I mean, that's a pretty damn aggressive, awful thing to say. An insult, frankly, to the 5 million that were lost in the gas chambers thanks to Hitler. An insult to all of our allies and to all of our soldiers that we lost. I mean, what a crazy, wacky, disgusting thing to say. And they just it rolls off their tongue. I'm like, come on. And now there's this idea that somehow the ballroom is related to him staying on. You got to be kidding me. I just want to point out, check out that donor list, okay? So you got donors like Apple, donors like Amazon. We've got Caterpillar, Coinbase. Look at them all. Google, everybody's on this. Meta, everybody's giving money. What do you know? Wow, wow, wow. Including, you go up to the C's. Who do you see? Comcast. Okay, Comcast, you guys. Comcast owns MSNBC. The clip I just showed you was on MSNBC. So, of course, everybody's having some fun. And if you haven't seen this yet, it is well worth just getting a quick chuckle out of, because Rachel Maddow, this is the AI meme, when she finds out, oh gosh darn it, Comcast is a benefactor of the ballroom.
Oh, hold on. To at least 3. Can we put up the graphic of this? Thank you. Do we have it? I think I'm going to have to hand this off. Yeah.
That's funny, okay? It's really funny. So, I'm sure that none of them are happy right now. They're like, oh my gosh, our employer, the people who issue our paychecks, they are giving money to this stupid ballroom. Oh my gosh, heaven forbid. Did I see Disney on that list? I don't think I did. Okay, so the ABC folks can rest assured I don't see Disney on the list. But the rest of them, oh my gosh, MSNBC, they are apoplectic right now. They cannot believe that it's come to this, that their employer, they must be happy that they're getting spun off, right? They must be really happy. Don't forget, Versant is coming up. Like in a matter of weeks, they're gonna actually formally cut the cord with Comcast. And, we'll see how that goes, shall we say. We shall see how it goes. It's really just kind of amazing. But I'm looking at the media right now, and I see more and more, like they're being forced to come around. They're being forced to come around in part because, well, reality's hitting, right? I mean, you've got inflation numbers that came in pretty tame. CPI actually coming in better than expected, as Santelli, who's one of the good ones over at CNBC, pointed out.
Here's our late but coming out September read on the Consumer Price Index. Headline number up 0.3, 1/10 cooler than both rearview mirror and what we were expecting. And if we look at the stripping out of food and energy known as core, it comes in also a bit less than expected, up 0.2. We were expecting up 0.3. Our last look was up 0.3. Here's the Moneyball numbers. Year over year, 3%. And even though it's less than the 3.1 we were expecting, it's hotter than 2.9. And after all, it's got a 3 handle. And if we look at CPI year over year ex food and energy, it also comes in at 3%. We're also expecting 3.1, but last look was 3.1, so it cooled a bit. So we're seeing interest rates move down and stocks move up.
Interest rates move down and stocks move up. That's a very, very common situation, right? That we've seen over and over and over again. And I think, you're seeing a little bit more optimism overall being bred back into the environment that we're in right now. Because if you can bring inflation down, if you can bring rates down, and you can actually start to see the economy rev up, well, wow. I mean, it's like Trump really did it, right? I'm just looking at the market today, closing up across the board. NASDAQ up nearly 2%. S&P up better than 1%. You get the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.7%. This is good stuff, guys, but no wonder why. Hey, the economy's stupid.
How low can they go?
Oh, we are looking at these lower prices. So from the skies to the roads we go here. Gas Buddy saying that the national average price of gasoline fell to less than $3 yesterday. That's the lowest intraday level since 2021. They fluctuate throughout the day. But seasonal factors could drive prices even lower. Gas Buddy's forecasting a national average in the 280s by the end of the year. This morning, dozens of states are already seeing averages under $3 if you're in southern states. So we're talking about Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, or even Mississippi, you're in luck right now because prices are in the 250s. But drivers in California, Hawaii, and Washington, they're still seeing prices at the pump over $4 right now. So we got to work on that. Gas Buddy saying that it's all due to increased oil production from OPEC this year, weaker demand, and inflation finally easing. So let's hope this trend continues.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, look, they said he couldn't do it. And it's kind of just amazing. Like, the media is being forced over and over, you guys, to recognize these huge wins. And we've got economic wins. I mean, I think even about just what went down with Argentina and Malay's party scoring big time. And the media completely misread that as well, because all the polling data suggested he was under fire. But what do you know? His party performed magnificently. So it's like people just, I don't know what's going on, but they just can't read the room. And ABC, of course, now being forced to say, yep, oh yeah, like gas prices are coming down. I mean, maybe they don't want to give Trump credit for that, but I can tell you, drill, baby, drill. You look at the drilling that's happened right now. We are drilling more than we have in years. We've gotten more permits to drill than we have in years. Well, all of that affects sentiment, which affects prices. So yeah, gas prices going down, not bad. Even in light of some of the stuff happening right now with Russia. And I know that everybody's on pins and needles right now. And yet you still are looking at a more positive economic environment right now. Really wonderful, wonderful to see. By the way, quick shout out to 76 Research, my company. Make sure, if you haven't subscribed to this, you really need to do it. Go and get at least the 76 Report newsletter. It's $1 a month. Go to 76research.com. Use my code word $. This is my research. Rob and I actually together have founded this company. A dear friend of mine of long time, and a brilliant guy, actually worked on Wall Street many years, stock picker, and a great one at that. Just take a look at the portfolios. They're right across the board. I do encourage you to go over to 76 Research and to get that newsletter. We just put out a piece on quantum computing, and it may not be all that you think it is. So let us help you sort of navigate that space right now. A lot of people are really excited about it. And there's even some quant funds out there, but we'll talk about what's what for real there. Again, get the newsletter, 76research.com. Just sign up with the free one, if nothing else. I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at 4 Free Markets right now as we look at everything that's happening, and we look at the financial industry and the need for better regulation, less regulation, dare I say. Well, me, I'm a free market capitalist. I mean, you think about all the regulation that really became so burdensome to all of us as consumers, all of us as small business owners, and all of us as Americans, not to mention the financial institutions that had to deal with all these regulators, because what did they want to do during the Obama years, during all of the Biden years? They wanted to debank people who they didn't agree with politically, religiously. I mean, it's bonkers, but it happened. And they were able to get away with that. And you think to yourself, how did that happen? Well, it's because we don't actually have things in the code, so to speak, written into the regulation to protect us from these regulators. That's the reality of it. So as we move forward here, first of all, the president's done an amazing job. And so I join the team at 4freemarkets.com. Go check it out there, in commending him for the executive order that prevents, or should theoretically prevent, these banks from doing this again. But I'm just going to say we need more than the executive order. I mean, we really do. We need something firm that Congress puts in that says this stuff can't go off the rails again. And you've got to rein in these regulators so they're not able to debank as they did. Believe me, plenty of people have pretty horrific stories. So what can change? The regulation itself. And we need everything in the fine print. It's time to update this stuff and get it up to code, get it up to snuff. Go to 4freemarkets.com today to learn more. Maybe put a little bit of pressure, if you would, on your congressperson. Yeah, I love these economic wins. I think it's tremendous what we're seeing, guys. Really tremendous stuff. But the reality of everything right now is we're in a changing environment. And when you look at the news coming out of CBS today, when you look at the news coming out of CNN right now, when you hear that there are going to be layoffs thanks to this merger, it's natural, it happens. But I think that Barry, who is brilliant, I mean, you couldn't pick a better person, frankly, in my estimation. I just think that she's fair as a journalist, but she's got a lot of work cut out for her. And at the end of the day, I would just ask for what? You know, and I would ask the same question, even of Fox, right? Let's face it, like Fox is the kingpin right now in terms of ratings, and they're beating out all the other cable stations. They're probably beating the networks as well. I'm almost certain of it. But where is that going? Like, what is the future? What does that lead to? Because this industry is changing so quickly, and with everything that's happened, you've got to be forward-looking. I think she is, and I'm curious to know about the plan, right? There's probably more coming, and it may mean a merger, believe it or not, with the CNN newsroom. So yeah, they're scared over there too. But I guess the good news is anybody who's actually talented, who actually wants to do something on their own, we've got a democratized environment, don't we? I mean, look at what I'm doing here. Who would have ever thought? So this is the future. Individuals with authenticity and realness that you don't get at the networks, delivering opinion anyway. And the news is coming in. We're seeing, right, all the video from all over the world that's coming in. And granted, you know, you have to look at everything with a grain of salt. And we do here on the Trish Regan Show. I'm like, okay, is this real? Is this real? Is this, you know, where's this person coming from? Let's make sure that we understand their bias before we run stuff. But, you know, look, everyone's got bias. You can see it all over MSNBC all day long, right? The fact that they don't challenge somebody who comes in and says, oh yeah, he's building the ballroom for himself because he's going to stay there forever. And nobody says boo. The fact that they do this on ABC, on their network program, on The View, and they try and tell you the reason he's got the National Guard in California and in New York and in Chicago is because he wants to quote unquote steal the election. I'm like, whoa, I mean, these are pretty poisonous things to say, and they're aggressive things to say, and they remain unchallenged. So what do? We challenge it. We challenge it all day long. I love having you here. You guys are just a terrific team, and we've grown into quite a community. Quite a community. I'm glad you liked Piece of My Mind, the great clip about gerrymandering. It was, wasn't it? And TG, thank you. I'm glad that you like the energy and you enjoy the show. I mean, look, David Lorenzo, Fox doesn't need Jake. I'm with you. I think some people over there kind of like him, though, believe it or not. You know, I don't know. I consider myself a pretty good judge of talent. I am somebody who in 2016 said, yep, don't count Trump out. Everybody was counting him out. And I said, no. You don't understand. Like, he speaks the language of the American people. People like him. He's likable. He's funny. He's self-deprecating. And he gets the economy, which is the most important thing, to every American. So I kind of knew, like, this was a guy, like, everybody laughed and said, yeah. And I'm like, no. That's talent, buddy. That's talent. Jake, not so much. Okay, sorry. Anyway, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for all you do to make this channel a success. Leslie, good to see you in the house again. Unc Andy as well. We're going to be back tomorrow with much more. I will see you then. Thank you.